Our health is a perfect opportunity to start the process of reinventing thyself because health is the foundation to absolutely everything. But it's not uncommon for us to take a left turn, take a right turn, take 10 steps backwards, slide off track, lose our plan, fall off the wagon, you name it, right? Well, in today's episode, we are going to talk about the common unpracticed habits. However, we are going to dive deeper into that and why that we repeat this pattern over and over and over again. Stay tuned to this week's episode on the Reinventing Thyself podcast. We all have situations, experiences, and moments in our life when we know deep at our core we have to do something different. We have to pivot. And regardless of how big or small that pivot is, it requires us to change something in our life. And that change can feel really uncomfortable. However, it is that change that is creating something entirely new. And it is that newness that creates a very different way of life in one area or multiple areas of our life. What's this all about? It is all about reinventing thyself. My name is Michelle Shutter, and I'd like to welcome you to Reinventing Thyself. I am so glad that you joined me today because it is here that we'll move beyond our old self, our old identity, and that trailer of garbage from the past that we like to pull into the future, but really need to ditch that hitch. It is here that we'll move into that place of reinvention and embracing the newness of it all. Are you ready to step into reinventing thyself? Because guess what? It is never too late, and your time is now. Let's get started. Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Reinventing Thyself podcast. I am excited that you decided to invest in yourself. You are not here by accident. You are here because you were meant to hear what is in this podcast or what you're seeing on this video. Because perhaps some sort of situation has come up in your life and you are ready to pivot. Well, you may not be ready, but you know you have to pivot. And so let's lean into that pivot. Let's embrace the change and learn from the lessons that you are fully to experience in the pivot. And why not make the decision to move boldly and bravely through this new beginning and beyond? Because I'm here to tell you that when you enter the gap, and we all do this multiple times, too many to count in our lifetime, that's where you're going to find your greatness. When you align yourself with the fullest expansion of who you are at this given moment, that's where your greatness shines. So health is just the foundation of it all, right? Like if we don't have our health, can we fully be that expansive, higher vibrational self that we deserve to be? Well, the answer to that generally is no. And I'm going to share that with you in this episode because let's face it, healthy habits are common knowledge, right? You don't need a medical degree. I don't have a medical degree. Maybe you do, maybe you don't have a medical degree. Like some of this is common knowledge, right? We do not, though, make it a common practice. And that is a challenging aspect for us. Like, why? Why don't we make some of this that is the foundation to our health common practice? And I'm going to dive into that. That's going to be we're going to deep dive a little bit into this today because we know that some of these common practices make a significant difference in our health. And let's face it, when knowledge is so accessible in the age of knowledge, right, ignorance is a choice. And we do not have to go down that route. Now, today we're going to tap into more like that whole piece of well-being. So yes, your physical health is essential. It's really important. However, there are some pieces here that we are overlooking. And one of those is really like tapping into our thoughts and our feelings around this component of health. So let's get into this a little bit more. We know that we cannot be the same person we want to be when we make a decision to embark on some kind of health journey, right? So if we make a decision that we want to improve our health in some way, we step into a gap, and that gap is from where we are to where we want to go. We cannot be that same person in mind, body, or spirit. It just doesn't work. So we have to fully embrace this process of reinventing ourselves in some way, shape, or form. When we make that decision and we decide to increase our vibrational frequency, things change for us. Now, let's get back to the whole piece of common knowledge, right? So common knowledge, what are those habits that are common knowledge for us? Well, hydration, right? We should be drinking lots of water. How much water? Well, take our body weight, whatever your body weight is, divide it in half. That number is the number of ounces you should be drinking on a daily basis. Okay, water. Movement. We know that we should be moving our body. That's another common knowledge, right? Get our heart rate up a little bit. Yes, it's great to walk the dog, but that dog might also be able to walk at a quicker pace. So let's get our heart rate up a little bit. Earth foods, healthy foods. Okay, so one of the things to think about is how much food are we eating that is coming directly from the earth with no other ingredients or minimal ingredients, knowing that I know what all those ingredients are and I can pronounce every single ingredient. Okay, so are we the majority of the time eating foods that grow in the ground, grow on trees, grow on plants, right? So yeah, I love chips and sauce. I love chips and guacamole. The chips do not grow on a tree, unfortunately, right? So, but looking at that package, I can find some chips that only have 3 ingredients and I can pronounce every single one of them. Bonus, right? Another one is sleep. We want to make sure that we're getting enough sleep every single night. Uninterrupted sleep, if possible. For women, that can be a challenge if you have kids. And as your hormones adjust and change as you go through life, that I'm learning is also can be a challenge. But again, something that we can work through. Finally, I also like to think of a common practice as add in and add out in terms of our food supply is not what it used to be. It doesn't have as many, our highest nutritional value as what it used to. So we need to add in. We need to supplement in some way. So are you supplementing with vitamins, minerals, other nutrients that your body needs that is not getting potentially from our food supply? In addition, you need to take out. So are you taking out? Are you detoxifying? Getting the things out of your body that don't serve you. Okay, so all of that I would consider to be common knowledge. So again, hydration, movement, earth foods, eating health foods, sleep, and then the whole add in and take out. Adding, supplementing what is missing from that we can't get from the foods, and taking out, detoxifying what is not helping us with our health. Now, I want you to think about some things here in terms of these common practices. When we look at water, right? Water is from the earth. It was earth, it's created by whoever you believe in, God, divinity, source, whatever you call your higher self or the higher self, right? Movement is all about feminine energy and being in that flow of life. Earth foods, again, look at that vibrational energy of an earth food versus a cookie, right? A cookie versus a handful of something you just picked from the garden, which has a higher vibrational energy. You can do the same thing with add-in and takeouts. Not all supplementation is created equal. So thinking about what supplementation you have, if any, is it connected to a higher vibrational energy? I would also add in there, and I should have put this back when I was talking about common practices, but getting adequate sunshine, right? Getting outside and having that sun give you a different kind of energy and support you in raising that vibrational frequency. Now, I want you to think about when you are drinking that water and moving that body and having earth foods as the majority of your intake, when you're conscious about the add-ins and takeout and sleep and sunshine, how does that feel to you? Does it put you at a higher vibrational frequency? And when you feel good in that higher vibrational frequency, guess what? You want to make more choices that support that make you feel good. Now, I want to give you a couple questions for you to reflect on. Because if this little piece of common knowledge, right? And we're not talking about, like, we can add gratitude, we could add connection, we can add all that. If we're talking about these healthy habits of this little piece, why can't we practice these common habits? Why is it so challenging to keep our body hydrated, to move our body, to eat earth-friendly foods, to get adequate sleep, to do the add-in, add-out, to get sunshine? Well, like if you're in Wisconsin today where it's gloomy and rainy, again, sunshine can be a little bit challenging. But when it's out, like, why are we not taking advantage of it, right? And so many times we look at what we are missing out on instead of what we are gaining by implementing and sticking to these common practices. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that these common practices have been something that you have not practiced diligently for a long time. And when you want to make that shift, when you want to hop into the gap and be like, yes, I want to be more consistent with these. I want to have a better, healthy lifestyle. I know this is the foundation to everything I do. Something starts to creep in, and that what creeps in is that lack of belief. And we begin to doubt ourselves because we question ourselves as to, can we really change? What does that look like? What does a new way of life look like? And for many of us, when we enter that gap and we're looking at that end result, it's scary. It seems so far away. And we let that lack of belief in ourselves take us out of the game. And so instead of looking at what we are gaining, we begin to have our thoughts focus on what we are missing, what we are sacrificing, what we are depriving ourselves of. Now, when we are looking at it as from this place of, what am I missing out on? We're really vibrating at a lower frequency. And so when I'm focused on this scarcity piece and what I'm missing out on, this lower vibration aligns with the lack of hydration. It aligns with not eating healthy earth foods. It aligns with not wanting to exercise or not wanting to move our body. And yet at the same time, this lower vibrational energy also feels really common. It feels comfortable to us because that's the frequency that we've been operating at for so long. So I want you to pause and just think about that. Think about, okay, I know common knowledge here. I have some the common habits of health. Where am I looking at it from a place of lack, scarcity, missing out versus, oh my gosh, I'm going to feel so good. I'm going to feel radiant. I'm going to feel abundant. This is aligned with my higher self. I'm going to be at a higher frequency and different things will be coming into my life because I'm operating at this higher vibrational energy. That's the deeper look that we need to look at this. Yes, all of these habits are common knowledge. No doubt. But why are they not a common practice? Perhaps they're not a common practice for you. They're not always a consistent common practice for me. I can tell you that. I'll be honest. They're not. I love my chips and salsa. I really, really do. However, I am very conscious when I make those choices. I'm not trying to fulfill an emotional depletion. I'm not trying to cover something up and avoid a feeling from it. So here are some questions for you to even dive deeper into this whole piece of why is it not a common habit for us, right? So when I say, why is this not a common habit for you? Take it a step further and look at, what is still lingering in the past that makes me feel this way? Is this a pattern that I have repeated over and over and over again? And if so, why? When I figure out this old pattern, there's something that is still serving you. There's something about that old pattern that is connected to you, that's connected to your identity, that's connected to your belief about yourself. Explore that. Dive into that. Grab a journal and write it all down. Because something is serving you there. It may not be good, but something is serving you. Another question to look at is, who would you be without the lifestyle choices that you are making right now? The lifestyle choices, the lifestyle actions that you are taking. If you're not doing these basic foundational pieces and making it a common practice habit for you, you do need to step into that place of creating that vision for yourself of who would you be if you made those choices. Now, one thing you want to stay clear of is this whole piece that you are expecting something to happen overnight. You're expecting something to happen within a week or 2 weeks. You unconsciously then are expecting microwave results. And microwave results generally are not sustainable. This isn't something that you moved into in a microwave minute. It is something that you have done over time. And now you've created a familiar feeling around these habits of doing them or not doing them. So if you're looking to reinvent yourself in the area of health, just by implementing these common habits of health, you really need to dive into and think about, okay, how long did it take me to get into the state that I am in right now? For some of us, it may be a couple months. For some of us, it may be a couple years. For others, it could be a couple decades. It doesn't matter the time. What matters is that you are going to make the conscious choice to allow yourself adequate time to make results happen for you. Now, I got some notes here. Few things that I want to finish up on is that you really cannot ignore the signs of your body. When you are beginning to fuel it at a higher vibrational energy, don't run away from that feeling because it may not be as familiar to you as a lower vibrational energy. Become aware of how it physically feels for you. And then if you dip backwards into that lower energy again, how does that feel for you? And we can do this in terms of, when I go to grab the bag of chips versus maybe I'm going to go and grab some raw veggies and hummus, right? What does that feeling feel like for you? Because again, one is going to feel more familiar because it has a pattern that you've repeated for so long. But you have to make that conscious effort to transition into that space where it feels good to you in a new way. And you have to embrace that and expect and want and align yourself with more of it. Now, the one thing when it comes to health is that many times we decide to wait on all this until our back is against the wall. Why? How is that serving you? Again, dive into those questions that I gave you. Now, the other thing that we think of is that we have to have something big and audacious in order to celebrate. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. The farthest thing. If you made a decision that you wanted something to eat and your choice was a bag of chips or the raw veggies and hummus, and you went for the raw veggies and hummus, by golly, you better celebrate that. Because that is just disrupting a pattern that you were used to for many, many days, months, years, whatever it is. You have to know that the small steps are worthy of celebrations. And all those small steps begin to compound to create bigger celebrations for you. Now, the other thing to think about is, okay, so I gave you, the water, I gave you the movement, I gave you the foods, I gave you the add-ins and add-outs, I gave you the sleep, sunshine. Just start with one thing. Start with one thing and get good at that one thing. And then maybe in a few days or next week, then add another thing. But I truly invite you to track your progress, track your choices, track your decisions. I track my food and water intake every single night. Every single night I'm writing it down. And I'm also doing this because I know I'm going through some hormonal changes. Like I want to be super present and I want to be conscious of what I'm putting in my body and how that's impacting me. Track it. Grab a little notebook and track what is happening. Also, track the progress over time, right? So if you start and you have this, you can look back and see where you're at. Now, the other thing is this whole piece of accountability, right? Like, how do we hold ourselves accountable when we're at this space of wanting to make a shift, of wanting to implement some of these common healthy habits into our life, but we know that we're going to slip or teeter? Well, health is one of those components that we absolutely dive into and are going to dive into in depth in the health portion of the life coaching classroom. If that is information you want more or want to learn more about, make sure you head over to michelleshutter.com. 2 L's in Michelle, 2 T's in Shutter, like a window shutter.com. And you're going to find a little tab up there that says Life Coaching Classroom. You're going to want to get your name on the wait list so that when it opens, you're ready to roll. And that accountability will be there for you. Yes, we'll talk about some of these common habits, but more importantly, we're going to dive deeper into those old patterns that resurface. So perhaps it isn't that whole piece of, I don't know, what to do. Of course, you know what to do. We have to begin to look at what's holding our wellness back in terms of our thoughts and feelings and our vibrational frequency, and where are we exactly on this emotional guidance scale? Because I guarantee you, after coaching women on their health, it isn't about the pound, like they're able to lose the pounds and inches when they align themselves and when they shift those thoughts and feelings into the vibrational frequency that they want to match, and they don't dip back. But that's challenging to do when you're on your own. It can be done. Don't get me wrong. It can be done. But that accountability, it can be challenging. So if you have already made a shift in terms of, shifted from the unpracticed healthy habits to the practiced healthy habits, kudos to you, because that is a definite shift in lifestyle. It's an uptick in that whole vibrational energy for you. And if you don't have people around you that support you, it can be really challenging. So kudos to you. This, without a doubt, health and really implementing some of these common practice and practicing these common healthy habits and diving into that whole energy piece around it, like, why am I repeating this over and over? Like, that is a new beginning for you. And new beginnings, as you know, should be done in a way where you move boldly and bravely through it and beyond, and that you should sustain it. This shouldn't be just a one and done. This shouldn't be just a 3-month process and then done. If you do that 3-month process and you resort back to those old patterns, you haven't cleared that energy. You haven't made that shift to align yourself with that higher frequency. Now, you might be wondering, oh gosh, I got a lot to think about here. Well, guess what? I'm going to give you another thought here to finish up with. And that thought is, who is being impacted by your lack of commitment to yourself? And who's watching you? How do you want to show up? How do you want to show up around this? Because all of this that I shared with you is part of reinventing thyself. You cannot step into the gap expecting to be the same person at the end result that you're seeking as when you entered. It's impossible. You will continue to repeat those old patterns over and over again, and you will not be fully aligned if you carry that expectation. If you don't have the belief right now, that's okay. You can borrow mine, because I know without a doubt that if you make some shifts in your vibrational energy, in your frequency, it will make all the difference in the world. And if you're not sure about this and you want to hop on a call, I'm happy to do that with you. Just make sure that you message me or you shoot me a text and let me know. I'll drop all that information in the notes below. Finally, my last question for you is it time for you to reinvent thyself? Is it time for you to move into this process of implementing these common healthy habits and practice them, but in a way that is truly aligned with you? In a way that, I don't want to say force because it's a choice, in a way that highly encourages you to reinvent thyself. There is no reason for you to hold on to those old patterns that do not serve you. If you want to know if you're ready to start reinventing thyself, head on over to michelleshutter.com. I've got a short quiz there for you to take so that you'll know exactly where you're at. And it's not just about health. It's this whole piece of it that we are looking for. We're looking for the wholeness of ourselves, the whole well-being in every aspect of our life. My wish for you is that you move boldly and bravely through the new beginning and beyond, and that you make the conscious choice to reinvent thyself. Until next time.
Well, what are you waiting for? Whether you've pivoted and are unsure, or you're on the verge of pivoting, there is no better time than now for you to begin. Want to know why? Because if it wasn't the right time, the pivot wouldn't have shown up. And to get you started, I have got 3 shortcuts to reinventing thyself. Just head on over to www.reinventingthyself.com and you can download it there. And don't forget to message me with the shortcut that resonates with you the most. One last thing. I know you and I are not the only ones that have leaned into the pivot. Be sure to share this with others so they can be supported too. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for supporting me and sharing this message. Until next time.